Okay, here for our weekly coaches show, Coach Chris Parker, head coach of the Pickens Dragons. You're coming off a pretty big win there, Coach. One of those wins where it's the classic, closer than the final score. Just talk a little bit about the game and being able to win it in the fourth quarter like you guys did.
Well, it was nice. We've it was a lot like a lot of our season. We struggled a little bit early, and we were able to to kind of maybe wear them down as the game went on, and able to score a few times late in the game. Maybe did make it look, maybe if you just saw the score, like it wasn't as close of a game as it really was. River Ridge did an excellent job being prepared, and had a good plan for us. And they're a good football team. They probably are as talented of a team with their record that you're going to see anywhere in the state of Georgia. So they just they've played a lot of good football teams, and so the ball hasn't bounced their way, and so they have the record they have. But they're a very talented team. People maybe underestimated them. We did not, but some people may have. And then I thought we found ways to win, and we found ways to make plays, and we did win some key downs, which in some of our losses has been kind of the opposite, where we played pretty well but lost key downs. So Friday night we struggled at times and won some key downs, and so you got to win games a lot of different ways. And so nice to get that win. Nice to put us in an opportunity where we're finishing in the top half of our region, so we'll be in the region playoffs, and then have a chance to win this week and get in the state playoffs. So from that perspective, we couldn't be happier. I thought the attitude and the effort of the players was excellent, and like it has been all year. And we're really looking forward to this week coming up.
All right, Coach, I'm glad you mentioned your upcoming playoff game. You've said before that you like to be in 10th games that matter, and of course, obviously, you want to win them. Now, being at Pickens, this year will be the first time you guys had a winning season since 2006. You built that program. Talk a little bit about the process that has you guys here now playing in the competitive 10th game, or a 10th game that matters.
There's a lot of things that factor into that. You got to have quality coaching, you got to have quality players, you got to have a lot of support. But you got to have the ball bounce your way a little bit too. But one of the things that we've been happy with here is, one, we got some good players. So our job is to put the good players in spots and give them a chance to win. Sometimes we do that well, sometimes we don't. But I think as a whole, it's important to understand the concept that football season starts building at the end of the season. And this is at places where they have struggled, this is a hard concept to understand. Early in the year, everybody's undefeated, everybody's fired up for the first game. And then if you lose a game here and there along the way, that excitement from the supporters, from the parents, from the players, from the coaches maybe even, all starts to wane a little bit. And we've challenged our players since we got here to take the opposite approach. I mean, we want to be excited about the scrimmage and the first game and all that, but let's build the excitement every week as we get into the year and be really excited and really ready to go to get into those 10th, 11th, 12th games. So the first step of every year is to get into a 10th game that matters. I know it's the goal obviously are greater than that, and we last year we were able to get to the region playoffs and lost, and this year we've done the same thing, and eventually, of course, we got to win these games. It's not just good enough to be there,
right?
But at the same time, you can't win them if you're not there. So I think your first goal has to be, we got to do whatever we got to do to make that last game matter. Because these region playoffs, it's obviously a playoff game. But even if it wasn't a playoff game where we played 10 regular season games, you still got to get in a situation where in that last game you're in the conversation of you're either already in the playoffs or you're going to win and be in the playoffs. So as long as you put yourself in that spot, I think you've got a developing program, if that makes sense. And we are definitely a developing program. I mean, we got a lot to work on and a long way to go, but things are going in a positive direction. And if we ever, stop doing that, then we got to reevaluate how we do a lot of things. So right now we're happy with that. I think it was important to, get the 6th win and have more wins than we had last year. But, that's just a number. What would be more exciting for me is for us to play competitively Friday night and give ourselves a chance to get to playoffs, which we did not do last year.
Now, you mentioned making sure you put your players in the right spaces, and I wanted to ask you in particular. You had your starting quarterback, Tanner Brumby, returning kicks. Was that something that you wanted to take advantage against River Ridge, or was it just because he's such a good athlete, you wanted to get him more touches?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was not for River Ridge necessarily. It was more about us. We have struggled a little bit in that position. We got a lot of young guys at the skill positions. You know, a lot of our receivers and secondary guys, corners and safeties, and all are 10th graders, maybe 11th at best. So, you know, we struggled a little bit with kick return with some guys. Of course, they're going to kick away from Shannon, who's always back there. And, you know, Tanner would be excellent at that, but you don't like putting him back there early in the year. He's too valuable to get hurt on a kickoff or something like that. But as the year gets on, you know, now we're in a case where, you know, we want to win every week, and we worry about next week. So I think as the way the season played out, you know, we struggled on that team with some other guys, plus he's a good athlete, plus we're to the point in the year where, you know,
we're not going
to be scared to put somebody out there. And, you know, Tanner actually came out of the game for one play Friday, and our backup quarterback, Marcus Bird, threw a touchdown pass. So we got full confidence in Marcus. If he has to go in there, obviously, we wouldn't have called a pass if we didn't have confidence in him. So so it makes it a little easier to put the quarterback out there and take the risk that he's going to make a huge play, with obviously that, you know, something bad could happen. But we're not going to sit here and worry about what could happen. We're going to worry about trying to win the game. So he'll probably be out there Friday too.
Now, I wanted to ask you, is it with your offense and him being a big part of the running game, did that make you a little less hesitant because you guys run the quarterback so often anyway? It's not a situation where he doesn't get hit in the game anyway.
Yeah, we're not scared of him getting hit. That was never the issue. Just on kick return, sometimes you can take different kinds of hits. It is easier maybe to take a different kind of shot that can give you issues like maybe concussion or something like that. Is maybe more likely when you're running from 30 or 40 yards away to make the tackle versus like an offensive play where they're 5 or 6 yards away from you. So there are some issues there. But as far as him getting hit, I mean, you know, he played quarterback for us, they're going to get hit. So him now and in the future, you know, Marcus, who he's going to get hit. I mean, you know, they're going to have to run the ball some. They got to be an extra running back. So, so we're not really scared of those guys getting hurt. But there's also common sense, and common sense would say early in the season it wouldn't be smart to put your quarterback out there and get him hurt on something like that.
Right.
But now we passed that point.
And I wanted to ask in particular about when you brought Marcus in and you did call the pass play. Is it obviously you had the confidence in him, but were you expecting maybe that the defense would be expecting to run? Or I would believe it was 4th and long, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was 4th and long. You only got a few options. We'd probably kick a field goal there. It would have been a long field goal. You know, or we can go for it. And, you know, going for it's probably mathematically better for us right now than kicking a field goal at that length. So, so we go for it. And we basically called the exact same play we would have called if Brumby had stayed in. There's no hesitation on the play call. Marcus is very capable of running every single play that Tanner runs. And Tanner's very capable, obviously, of running the offense too. So we're fortunate that we got some players that, you know, at a lot of positions that are good, and we got faith in them. It's not just at quarterback, but everybody's going to analyze the quarterback. But we've had guys come in all year and play inside linebacker for 2 or 3 plays, or defensive line for 2 or 3 plays here, and do a great job. So Marcus did that at quarterback. It was exciting. I'm happy for him because he's going to be a really talented player for us. He already is at receiver. He's going to be very talented for us at quarterback down the road. But yeah, our play call, as far as we call, has a lot more to do with down and distance and all than who's in the game.
I'm glad that you said that about the down and distance and how you decide to call. In high school, obviously, the kicking talent isn't as deep as it would be obviously in other levels, and the trajectory on long kicks are always short, so it always affects how and when coaches decide to go for it on 4th down. Have you found that in just high school ball in general that coaches tend to go for it more on 4th down in that mid-range than kick the long field goals?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, we definitely do. We're not going to be scared. We're not going to go out there and be scared and punt, you know, and be at the 35 and put it in the end zone and give it to them at the 20. That's not any good. You might as well go for it. Kicking an extra point is, for us, kicking an extra point has been about 80%, which is not good, and we got to address that. But, you know, so we're making about 4 out of every 5 extra points. So if we start getting away, so we know if we got a field goal that's around the 3-yard line, then we're 80%. So if you back it up, you can imagine
right.
it changes
right.
percent. So you have to kind of take in consideration when you're in that range whether you're on the hash or not, and what because if you're on the hash, that changes the percent because now the kicker's got to angle the ball.
A lot of people don't take that into account. They see a short field goal, and honestly, I can't remember. It was a college game I was watching, and it was short. I think it was when South Carolina upset Mizzou. And it was a short field goal, and I literally, right before he missed the field goal, I said, man, that's a really odd angle. It's like the left hash, and people don't really consider that hash changes the trajectory, really, of where he aims.
And we don't use really like any kind of scientific approach, to be honest with it, but there is a scientific approach to it. But you just kind of have to figure out in your head what's the odds of, you making this kick versus the odds of you converting this fourth down. In that particular case from Friday night, it's fourth and about 12 or 13 probably, and it's about a 38-yard field goal. Neither one of those are probably good options for us, to be honest. But we did feel like if neither one of them were good options, then one's 7 points and the other one's 3. You might as well go for the 7.
Might as well go for the 7.
And if you kick a field goal and you get it blocked or something like that, there's a lot of negatives that can happen on a field goal. If you do get it blocked, then they can of course run it back, and there's some things. So you got to take all that into account, and depending on how experienced your kicker is and how good you feel about the snapper, the holder, the kick. A lot of things go into every little part of football. What makes football a great game to coach is all the little things that you would never think of about with the ball placement and all the things. And so it's fun. We don't make the right decision every time. Of course, when they do something like that, we look like we did.
Right.
But that very easily could have been gone the other way, and then we look stupid for not kicking it. So. You never know if you're making the right decision, but based on what we see at practice and based on what the numbers we have of what our players can do, we make decisions based on that, but not always based on who's in the game. We have confidence in all of our players. Everybody we put out there, we have confidence in to make the play.
I'm glad that I'm really glad that you spoke about whoever you put in the game. Late in the game, you guys are trying to run the clock out, and you basically scored 2 touchdowns in the last 2 minutes on long runs. When you have the depth that you have, when you have you have a player of Shannon's ability, but then you can put in a guy like Jake Coleman, what kind of just confidence does that give your coaching staff when you have that kind of depth and that kind of ability, especially with the offense you guys run, the no huddle?
Well, we try to talk to our players about playing all 48 minutes, and regardless of the score, one way or the other, and and whoever's in the game needs to step up and do the job to the best of their ability. And so I think we were up 28-21. We had the ball way back in our end. We, of course, at that time, we're playing the best we can play, and we're trying to run the clock out. And on, the first play that we ran, we gave to Shannon, and he went 70 or 80 yards. And I thought that was a testament to our players. We're not going to sit on the lead and try to be scared to turn the ball over, or try to be scared to, not get a first down and have to give them the ball back. We're attacking them, and so we attack. It doesn't always work. I'm not trying to say it always works, but we're always attacking. And we scored, and then we stopped them, and we got the ball back, and we did take Shannon out of the game because Jake's a senior, and Jake Coleman's an excellent player. He, unfortunately for him, he's got one of the best running backs in Georgia right there ahead of him, but he's in a good spot right there. Running back's a good fit for him, and he's run it well all year. And so we wanted him to run the ball some there. We couldn't hit a knee because they had timeouts, and there's a chart used for that, and we couldn't hit a knee, so I had to run play. And then the first play we ran, he scored too. So we don't ever want to look like we're trying to show up the other team or be disrespectful, but at the same time, we want our players to understand every play they play is a rep, chance for them to get better. And so when Jake's out there running the ball, it's a chance for Jake to get better. If Shannon's out there running the ball, it's a chance for him to get better. It doesn't matter who's in. Same as we were talking with the quarterbacks. Whoever's in, they need to execute that play to the best of their ability, and let us worry about the down distance, the score, and stuff like that.
Now, speaking of the talent on your team, Shannon set a season record. I believe you had a linebacker. His name escapes me.
Yeah, Thomas Howard.
Thomas Howard set the career record for tackles. Already, before you played your 10th game, you've broken the record you guys set for total offensive points. Talk a little bit about maybe obviously, you know, in the back of your mind, you want to win the game. But when you have guys like, especially on offense, because, you know, tackles is that kind of decides itself.
Right.
But when you have a guy who's going for a record, does it put a little bit of pressure? Obviously, you know, the game is more important. You want to win. But do you have a little bit more pressure to see if you can get that record?
We try not to. I mean, that stuff doesn't enter my mind in a game. I'm sure it does enter a 16 or 17-year-old's mind. I'm not foolish enough to think that, but that kind of stuff doesn't enter my mind. The only thing that enters my mind is trying to win. I mean, and you told about points scored, and we're really proud of all the points we scored. But all at the same time, we'll spend the whole off season working on some of these games where we hadn't scored as many points. You know, we got shut out once earlier this year. We scored 13 against Northwest Whitfield, so we'll get a chance to play them Friday and see if we can get more than 13. But I mean, we've had some really good offensive outputs. We've had probably 5 or 6 games with 40 points, but some of these other games have not been. So the key for us with all them records and all that is consistency. You know, Thomas Howard actually is the most impressive of those records because that joker makes every tackle. I mean, it's unbelievable. If I heard of somebody with 155 tackles on another team, I'd probably be saying, oh, he ain't got 155 tackles.
Right.
There's no way that's true. But I'll sit there and watch it myself. I mean, the guy makes 18 or 19 tackles every game. And it's really impressive. But he's not able to do that without everybody on defense playing their assignment. A lot of the defense stuff's set up for him to make a lot of tackles. And so he's doing it.
I was going to ask you that, actually.
You know, offensively, a lot of plays are set up for Shannon to get yards. So that's his job, to get yards. I mean, fortunately, it's more than anybody's ever gotten. But, you know, people got to block for him. Downfield blocking was excellent Friday night in the second half. Justin Hamrick, Clay Lawson, especially on the edge, blocking where those 6-yard gains turned into 60-yard gains. So there's a lot of team component in record breaking. You know, it's exciting for those individual players to have that. And in a place like this where it's a good community, and it is a community school, and they have been playing football here for nearly 60 years. It's cool to be the all-time leading anything. That's awesome.
Right.
And Brumby's broken every passing record. That's already happened. Well, that didn't happen Friday. I mean, we got to passing touchdowns, passing yards, passing in a season, in a career, in a game, all that stuff. And so that's good for Tanner. When he graduates, he can have that, you know, and he can always say he was that. And then, of course, it'll be the job of the next teams to all try to do that.
Records are made to be broken.
Right. But ultimately, the only thing that should enter our mind, and the only thing that definitely enters my mind on Friday, is trying to win. We do not need to be getting shut out by people, regardless if we score 400 points in a season.
Right.
We don't need to be getting shut out by people. If we run for 1,500 yards, that's great. You run for 2,500 yards. But you can't go out there and run for 60 in a game and then run for 300 the next.
Right.
Be consistent, you know, in our performance. And Thomas has been the most consistent, honestly, of all those guys. And so he deserves to be commended. Defensively, sometimes it's harder to get that attention for breaking things on defense, you know. Offensively, people know passing yards, rushing yards, receiving, touchdowns, things like that. But the key for that is just being consistent. And I think we have had some pretty consistent play this year. Like I say, anytime you take 6 or 7 games and score 40 points, you're going to break a lot of records or you're going to have a lot of yards. And so that's been nice. But, I mean, you said we already scored more than we scored last year. Well, we didn't score any in the 10th game last year. So there was no danger of that number going up last year after 9 games. So the challenge for this year is going into this 10th game, are we going to, you know, do better than that? We're going to have to be over 300. We say we had 282?
I believe it was 279 was the total, is the record for points.
And what we have now?
No, that's what it is now. I want to say it was 260 maybe last year.
But we'll have to have over 300.
Right.
So we need 21 at least to win. Right. We're going to have to be over 300. So that's the only record that matters right now is getting them 300th point. And probably more than that because, you know, Northwest got a good offense too. Going to take, you know, we're going to take a lot of points to beat them probably. Now,
speaking about this upcoming game with Northwest Whitfield, you've obviously, you guys played them before and you took an L. You had some turnovers in that game. What are some of the challenges that come with playing a game, playing a team that you faced before in that year, and especially when you already lost to them?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things that factor in, and all this is speculation because I have never played the same team twice in a season. You know, I've coached hundreds of games, but I've never played the same team twice. Just hadn't worked out. So this is new to me, but all I can figure is whichever team can make the most progress from the first game to the second game, or whichever team can do the things they did well in the second game and also correct the things they did poorly,
right,
will probably have the best advantage. And it's not like you can go out there and run a whole new offense or a whole new defense for the week. So Northwest kind of has a good idea about what we do. We kind of have a pretty good idea what they do. The things that we did well last game, we like to be able to do well again. And the things we did poorly, we'd like to fix and be able to do better. And so, and I'm sure at the same time, they're going to be sitting there trying to stop the things we did well last time. So, I think it'll be interesting to see. I'm excited to have the opportunity. I guess, I guess considering that it had no bearing on the region standings who won or lost that game.
Right.
Because it was a crossover game. We didn't need that stuff for tiebreakers. So it wouldn't have mattered if we'd have beat or lost Northwest. We were going to play them again right here. It's how it all played out. It didn't matter in any way, shape, or form who won that game. That we still had to play here, and this one would matter. And so I guess the fact that we lost last time, maybe there's a little excitement to get opportunity to play them again because you lost to them. But surely they're just excited to play us too. Because it's a chance to go to the playoffs for both schools. Both of us lost in the playing game last year. We lost to Dalton and they lost to Gilmer, I believe. But so both of us got to this point last year and did not finish.
Right.
And so I think both schools are excited to have that opportunity to finish this year. And of course, one will get to go to the playoffs. So that's exciting. We want that school to be us. But at the same time, it's exciting that we're getting this opportunity to be in these conversations with places like Dalton and Northwest and those guys.
Now, let me ask, in analyzing film for this game, have you found yourself watching more of your guys' game against them or more of their games later in the season?
Yeah, both. Both. You got to have two kind of mindsets on that. We spend a lot of our time watching our last game, obviously, because no better picture on what they're going to do to you than actually
what they did to you.
Yeah. So, but at the same time, that was 7 or 8 weeks ago. So, same way with us. Different kids maybe get hurt, or they shuffle some people around, or some stuff that they didn't do early in the year they're starting to run a little more of. Both teams I think have that, is what I mean. I think so. You got to kind of evaluate what you see recently, but have a good idea about what they did to you the first time too. Coach Robinson, he's a good guy. He does a good coach. He's a good coach, friend of mine. He'll have those guys ready, and then we'll be ready too. All
right, Coach. I want to ask you about and just being a football coach, being around football, for many years, and having the experience you have. There's been a lot of talk with the Miami Dolphins situation with bullying versus hazing. And I know in high school it's a little different. But, for basically since football's been around, the seniors have always hazed the freshmen and the new guys and whatnot. In your experience, where has that balance been? How do you keep that balance of boys going to be boys and, that rite of passage as opposed to, hey, that's too much?
Right. Well, we try to not put up with anything like that, we joke around. The kids joke around with other kids. We joke around with kids. Kids joke around at us, There's a lot of positive energy with kind of having fun out there on the football field and messing around some. But, there's the thing we try to talk to everybody about. And there's a line, obviously, that you don't cross with people. And the high school level, it's obviously an issue. It happens. But we're very aware of it. This is something you talk to kids a lot about. That's the whole idea of like the boys being boys thing and the older kids picking on the young kids. That day's over. We don't put up with any of that, to be honest. We don't put up with any of that. But we'd talk to our players about it. Just that day's up. People with phones and
right.
video and things. And none of that stuff is worth any of us losing our job over, or any of these kids getting suspended or not being able to play football, or over just joking around. What they think's just joking around. So at the beginning of the season, that conversation inevitably comes up at some point. Usually right there at the beginning, the first couple of days of the fall. But fortunately here we have not dealt with that, to the best of my knowledge. We haven't dealt, not that I'm aware of. We haven't had any issues like that. And we got some good players that understand how to bring the young guys under their wing and pump them up and try not to be those guys. And so we try to talk to our players about doing that. They're not perfect, but But what's going on in the NFL, you know, I don't know much about that story, so it's hard for me to say what they're doing. But I know, you know, there's a line between messing around with your friend and giving them a hard time about something and then taking it, you know, to the next level where you're really harassing them. And you know, common sense and decency would tell you not to do that. So they got to start learning that here in the high school, and then hopefully it carries on with them through whatever workplace they have, whether it's the NFL or not.
All right, Coach. This is something I thought about from our conversation last week. When we were talking about you know, bad calls going for and against you, sometimes you get the bear, sometimes the bear get you. You made the point that you try not to be in that situation where a bad call can, you know, affect the outcome of the game. But also, you know, you always speak about how you trying to win and they're trying to win. Where's the balance in that, when you want to not be in that position, but if you're playing a team that's equal to, or you know, that they're trying to win as well, where's that balance where you want to make sure that you're not in that position?
Well, I mean, anytime you play a good team like we're playing Friday, we have no expectation of beating them by many touchdowns. That's probably not going to happen. We'll take it.
Right.
But it's probably not going to happen. You're going to be in a close game. What happens with officiating, though, is if you start allowing the officiating to dictate how you coach or how you play, then you're wrong. Now, if you want to sit in the bleachers, when I retire, I'll go sit up there and yell at refs and be all on the rest. Different. You sit in the bleachers, let the officiating affect your mood. That's fine. But you can't let the officiating affect your mood. Doesn't mean we're not going to talk to the officials. I've talked to officials and get on them a little bit here and there about stuff and try to let them realize where they've messed up. But at the same time, it doesn't change how we call plays. It doesn't change your demeanor. It doesn't change how you play defense. If you're letting it, then that's a problem. When two teams are close, sometimes one call here or there does decide the game, no doubt. But you can always find plays in the game that if you'd have performed well in this play, that call would not have mattered. And that's what we're talking about. It's not that every game decided by less than 7 points, you know, maybe the official. But you have to figure out if you lost a game by an official's call, you know,
there was something else you could have done.
There's something else you could have done to make that not happen. And that's all you can do, because you're not going to change an official's call. I mean, once they make it, that's it. And that's just part of it. Because like I said, if you coach long enough, you're going to be on both ends of that. We've gotten some good calls. And we've gotten, just this year, we've got some good ones and we've got some bad ones. And the bad ones have affected our game sometime, and the good ones have helped us win some. So, but usually the officials have little bearing on winning and losing the game, to be honest. If the players and the coaches win and lose the game, and usually the officials don't have much to do with it, even though unfortunately sometimes they get roped into a play in the fourth quarter.
Right, yeah, it's always the key plays that everybody remembers.
Right. And the same play could happen in the first quarter and everybody would have gotten over it and not realized that cost you the game.
Right.
But it could have equally been as an important play in the first quarter.
Right.
It's just that, you know, that spotlight wasn't on the officials at that time. So officials got a tough job. I mean, I always sympathize with officials. They got a tough job. You know, they're not pleasing anybody. You know, the good thing about us trying to win and them trying to win is, you know, one of us going to win.
Right. Somebody's got to win.
Officials never win. You know, they're always losing there in somebody's mind. So,
yeah.
But we can't let that stuff. We don't worry about that stuff. We got a good crew here Friday. You know, these region playoff games, the state assigns the crew. We have no say over who the refs will be. You know, in the regular season, we get a certain group of people, you know, to pull from, and then they assign us out of that certain association. When the playoffs, and this counts as a playoff game by Georgia high school standards, then the state assigns officials. So we got some of the better guys, just like in the college and professional sports. You know, they take the guys and they take the ones who've done a real good job over a year and put them in these playoff games. So, you know, you probably won't even notice the official on Friday. Hopefully, players and the coaches, you know, decide the game.
All right, Coach. I just want to ask you really one last question about the playoff game. Obviously, you're facing a team you faced before. What is like the overall mood of your team? Are they looking forward more? Obviously, they want to win, but are they more excited about the play-in game, or more excited about getting that revenge and the playoff game?
I guess maybe some. I mean, I guess some of both. I don't know. I'm glad you asked me that, so I could say this though. That we couldn't have been more proud of the kids in this aspect. And I was telling some of the guys this earlier today. It does not feel to me like this is the 10th game of the season. I'm not tired. I'm not really, as agitated as I am sometimes. And it doesn't feel to the players like we practice. And today's Wednesday. We have our last practice of the week. So we've had Monday, Tuesday, and now Wednesday. We go out there and practice. It doesn't feel like the end of the season. The end of the season has a feel to it. It just has a feel to it where the players are really emotionally drained. The coaches are drained. We work 7 days a week, for 10 straight weeks or longer. So, everybody's kind of drained, and you can just kind of sense it. And we really haven't had that. I don't know if we had a little lull there early in the season a few weeks ago. We struggled for a couple weeks, and maybe that was good for us in terms of getting our feet underneath us now and getting back going. But the best compliment we can give this team, and this will be regardless of what happens on Friday night, so I'm glad it's recorded here before the game, is that they really are playing hard at the end of the season and trying to do the things that we asked them to do and trying to be as excited about November practice as they were about August practice, and we really have gotten that. So it really feels good this week. It feels like we're supposed to just keep playing, and that doesn't mean that will give us 1 point on Friday night. We're going to have to earn those points, but it's exciting that the players have that kind of attitude, and they understand that this is the time of year you want to be good, and this is the time of year we want to keep building toward. And I'm hoping as years go on that this just becomes a normal thing, that we get in these late season games, and that's when we get serious about it, and that's when we really start playing our best football. And so it's yet to be seen what what the story is on this season exactly, and what happens on Friday will have something to do with that. But it's definitely been a step of progress, and it'll definitely be a good representation of how these kids have conducted themselves all year and how they practiced and how the effort and attitude they've had every day will be something that the guys that are coming back can use as a role models and examples on what we want to be doing next year, maybe just with even a little better record going into it or something. So that's good. I mean, I've been happy with it. We lost 3 games. All 3 of them been to teams that are 8-1 right now.
Right.
So we're proud. We didn't want to lose any of those games, but we lost some good football teams, and we've been able to bounce back and put ourselves in this situation. And now we got to take this situation and actually go do something with it. Which in the 3 other opportunities we've had to play really good teams, we have struggled some.
Right.
This is an opportunity to do something with that, and we're excited about that chance.
I know I said it was the last question, but I have one more. Speaking of bouncing back, your offense has struggled in the previous couple games and even into the third quarter of the game versus River Ridge. They seem to have bounced back in that fourth quarter. Does the offense, coming up with those big plays in the fourth quarter, does it give you a little bit more confidence in them coming into this game?
I think so. I think it gives the players confidence. I try to always have confidence, but I think it's hard when you're 16 to be able to put the last thing. We talked to them all the time about playing the next play and putting the last play behind you, but that's a lot harder to do than it is to say, and especially when you're 15, 16 years old. So I think it was important that we played well in that game in the second half offensively. Just speaking as an offensive coach, it was important that we kind of got a little momentum going and got a little confidence. And there's reasons why we're getting stopped. I mean, it has a lot to do with us not making plays, and at the same time the other team doing a good job. They got you get late in the year and teams got 7 or 8 or 9 games of watch of you playing.
They've been studying too.
Yeah, they do a better job, So, but at the same time, we can do things better to still execute and get points. So, I was excited to see us do that on Friday and really play with a lot of intensity at the end of the game offensively. So, hopefully that will carry into Friday night. Yes.
All right, Coach. Well, I appreciate your time.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thanks.